Hello, my name is Dr. Maya Byfield. My business is the Phenomenal STEMist. I'm so excited to be here in Orange County because it's where I live. I live in Apopka, Florida. And I decided to make this business because I saw a need for underrepresented students to be successful in STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, math. And the best way I can do that is just provide products for parents to prepare them, whether it's a book or online STEM camps or just video podcasting. My goal is to transform this community, especially those who are underrepresented. And the way to do that is to help parents understand their children's minds and basically develop them at different stages of their lives to be prepared for a successful STEM career. Thank you so much. That's why I'm here. All right. Hey, what's going on? It's the Phenomenal STEMist. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. I am so excited to have Phenomenal STEMist with a whole bunch of phenomenal STEMists. I see a couple of people watching. Tell me where you're watching from. I have some homework that you must do, though. Before, do me a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And of course, get that book, phenomenalstemist.com. Uh, you can find it on phenomenalstemist.com. The book is called The Phenomenal STEMist. And don't forget to educate your children if you're interested in phenomenal STEM camps programs. Do me a favor and check out phenomenalstemist.com. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rochelle Harris, Howard Webley, Jamal Hardis, Kamoy Harris, not in relation to Rochelle, though they're both Jamaican. How is everybody doing?
Good.
Doing great.
Good.
I see people are flooding in. I have some interest here. For those of you who've been with me this whole time, I usually do a one-on-one, but I decided to do something different. It actually came from an idea from Rochelle. Do you remember this idea? You're like, well, maybe you should think about um, having a dialogue with a whole bunch of STEM professionals. And I'm like, you know what? I I think I want to do that. And so with me, I have uh, Dr. Kamoy Harris. She is a obstetrician gynecologist. She'll go into further detail in terms of what she does. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to do that. I have Jamal Hardage. He's a computer scientist.
specifically director of automation. I had him on a couple of uh, weeks ago or months ago, and he said he'll come on again. I'm like, okay, awesome, awesome. I have Howard Webley, who is a microbiologist for a governmental entity. And lastly, I have Rochelle Harris. She is a nurse case manager for I don't, do you want me to, well, I'm not going to say the institutions where you guys work, but for a institution that is involved in health equity in our community for kidney care. So I am excited. For those of you who are watching, please do me a favor, share this. We're talking today about, is college worth it? First, I want to ask you guys, what do you do for a living? Specific, just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what you actually do for a living outside of my general introduction. I'll start with Dr. Kamoy Harris.
Hi, everybody. As Maya had mentioned, I am a medical doctor. I am an OBGYN, or obstetrician gynecologist, but I do specialize in the care of high risk pregnancies. So, specifically, it's in the name of my specialty, maternal fetal medicine. Any complications on the maternal side or any complications on the fetal side, those patients would come specifically to me. And I would take care of them during their pregnancy to make sure that mom and baby have the best outcomes. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Jamal, what do you do? In just a short summary.
Yeah. What I do is take data that comes from high throughput automation, data that scientists gather and kind of pre-format it on the front end, and then sometimes take it on the back end and make it usable. And so that's pretty much in a nutshell. So work
And you
for
do it
pharmaceutical,
okay, go ahead.
yeah, pharmaceutical company, and yeah.
Thank you so much. And Howard?
Hey, I am, like you mentioned, a microbiologist. I am a microbiologist, specifically biologist.
Hey, Howard, I'm losing you. I lost your for something like went shh, and then I lost you. Can you say it again?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm a microbiologist, as you mentioned, environmental microbiologist, specifically food microbiologist. And then that also includes inspection activities of different facilities and so forth. So, on a routine basis, analyzing different types of food products and produce products and so forth for food contaminants or things of that nature.
Awesome, awesome. And Rochelle?
Hi, I'm currently a nurse care manager, and what we do is help to coordinate the patient's overall care. We make sure that they have the medical supplies and equipment that they need. They have the education that they need, and they have any type of community resources that they need. And the overall goal is to assist them so that they're staying out of the hospital.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We're talking about, is college worth it? Did you guys need a college degree to do what you do?
Yeah.
I see Rochelle with the BSW, BSN, MPHRN. She got it. Nurses love to show that RN at the end too, right? Right, Jamal? The nurse, the RN is the one that really, really counts. That's
Yes, yes, that BSN.
yeah, yeah. So everybody needed a bachelor's degree at least. Um, um, everybody here actually has, no, Howard, you have a bachelor's degree, and everybody here has a master's degree. Everybody else has a master's degree or a doctorate degree. So we have all levels of degrees here. And I'm going to start with my first question to you guys. Is a college degree essential for career success in today's world? Do you think a college degree is essential?
So I feel that it depends on where you want to go and what you want to do.
Right.
As far as the medical field, again, it depends. If you want to be a medical doctor, of course you need the degree. If you want to be a registered nurse, well, they have two tracks actually. They have an associate's and they have an RN. The thing with the associates, you cannot go into management, and you can only go so far as an associate RN. So they will encourage, and then some hospitals don't hire associate RNs, or
Start
they'll
them.
hire you and they'll give you 2 years to get your bachelor's degree. So it does depend on what you want to do and where you want to go. They have some different programs like the sonographer techs, the PT, excuse me, physical therapy techs, different, radiology techs. They don't need a college degree. They can go and get a certification. So it depends on what you want to do and where you want to go with your career.
It depends. It depends. Anybody else? Do you need a college? Is a college degree essential for career success in today's world?
Yeah, I know my profession. I think everybody else here is working with kind of with health, so it's a little different for computer science. I think it just depends on the grind that you want to have. So it's not necessary to an extent, but it limits you. So there's some jobs, just like most fields, where you can't even apply unless you have a degree. But with software developing, if you pick up the books, if you read, if you are diligent about learning it, and you can master it, then you don't. It's not essential, right? Because a lot of the software developing, a lot of software engineering is about what you can do, like how you can perform. And so as long as you can show that skill without having a degree. So it's a little different track. One of the things that is a little difficult though is the grind and the difficulty of showing that you know, right? So when you have a degree, sometimes it's a little easier to enter. Whereas if you don't have a degree, now it's kind of dependent upon you to show that you know the skill, and so yeah, it's kind of it's a toss up. It's a toss up. It definitely is a good thing to have because kind of like Rochelle mentioned, sometimes it gives you some type of plateau. Like you can't really maybe you can't get into management, but you can lead a technical team, right, to an extent. But yeah, I think with software developing, it's not necessarily critical, but it definitely is beneficial.
Yeah, yeah. Howard, come on.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with Jamal and Rochelle. It's well, at least for medicine, it's you have to get a degree in order to be a medical doctor. That's non-negotiable. And you actually have to have a couple of degrees beyond college, beyond a bachelor's. But I do think that having a degree such as a medical degree certainly does open up many more options, and I think we all can agree that regardless, if you do have a STEM degree, it opens up so many other options for you, that the possibilities are endless, and I think it doesn't limit you as the other two have mentioned, in terms of what you can do or what your opportunities that you're able to get.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll go last. Howard, you want to say something?
Sure. Yeah, I like the way you said that. That it doesn't necessarily limit you, right? I know for me, for what I do, yes, in order to do what I do, because, and I think for all of us here, when it comes to any particular STEM type of field, there's some specialization that's involved. There's some specialized skills and so forth. And for what I do, you can't necessarily, that's what I like about the IT situation. You can pick up a book and
Teach yourself.
you can go and get some certification and so forth. That's why I emphasized environmental microbiologist as opposed to a clinical microbiologist. Because with the clinical now, there's some certification that you would need with if you're going to go in that direction. Um, and that's a little bit additional. So for in my area, it is specialized. There are certain type of skills that you need to get that you just can't necessarily, pick up. I don't know, through YouTube or something like that. Like you do have to go and preferably get the degree. Is it, and that's for what I do, right? And like we've all mentioned, for what each of us do specifically, is it essential for in the world today? I don't think I would. I think I would. I see too many examples out there of folk who are going various different routes that they've chosen, that are available to people nowadays that are not limited to college degrees. So I wouldn't say it's essential necessarily.
Yeah, I think essential is a strong word. There are a lot of opportunities out there now that probably weren't back in the day, and um, I do think accountability and some kind of schooling is necessary. Trade school, I think some kind of certification is essential, but not necessarily a college degree. I also agree with you guys in terms of there's a ceiling when you don't have it. So if you're trying to lead, if you're trying to be a part of the future leaders that can impact your community, I think it's also essential for you to impact your community. So get yourself in the room. There are a lot of decisions that are being made with people in the room, and they're not allowing African Americans without degrees in certain rooms. So I think that's important to get ourselves into certain types of spaces, and they can make up rules for us too, that it may not have required a degree now, but when we apply, then all of a sudden it needs a degree. So there's it
Yeah,
depends. I think what I'm hearing from you guys, it's not necessarily essential, but it depends on what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go for
yeah.
yourself
I
as
would.
a community. Go ahead, Jamal.
Yeah, I would say I've been on kind of both sides.
Hmm.
So I left high school and went directly to college. So I started at a community college, but then I got married, took a break for a long time. So I kind of, for that time, I kind of just rested on the skills that I had working with computers from 13 on, right? Because
Hmm.
I knew, like, at that point, I had a pretty good foundation. So I used those and worked. But at the same time, there was still a ceiling. And so the job I have now, there's no way I would have gotten it without having a degree, right?
Yeah.
So there still is some type of sometimes there's a plateau, but at the same
Right.
time, if you're in the right position, in the right job, in the right situation, and you start and then you can move up or certain things, you can still do it. But yeah, just like you're saying, it definitely puts a limit on some of the things that you can do. So
So what are the viable alternatives to a traditional higher education? So if it's not necessarily essential and you can be successful outside of it, what are some alternatives, some viable alternatives? What do you think? I definitely started off with saying I think
yeah, I
trades.
would say trades.
I
So
think,
it,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think trades. I think trades are huge. And a lot of times, just like when you go to college, you have to look and see, okay, you know what, is what I'm getting a degree in going to sustain what I want my lifestyle to be, right?
Right,
Is this going to be something I like? So I think those are the same things that you ask when you go to start doing trades. And
right.
so, you can get a trade, just like Rochelle was mentioning, radiology tech and all these other things that you can do to be, successful, right? To provide. But, it still is one of those, a lot of the trades are typically underneath another umbrella, right? And I think that's the thing that's tough sometimes, is that if you want to get to that next level, then it seems you're always going to be kind of chasing it, and so I think that's the toughest thing, for trying to get a trade. But they definitely point you in the right direction and get you started quicker for sure.
Yeah, to piggyback what you're saying, I feel like a lot of people want to get to the next level when they're older,
Hmm.
right? I HVAC tech, for instance, is a really good trade,
Hmm.
and people they make great money. But the types of jobs that they're doing it sometimes can be backbreaking and dangerous, putting yourself in positions of that you don't want to necessarily be doing when you're 55,
Hmm.
right? But if you get a college degree on top of that trade, you can be on a higher umbrella and working way past, 55, 60. If you have to think about as you age, do you want to be doing those trades when yeah, my mom's in the house. Shout out to my mom. She's number one fan. I see UK Boogie too. But she said it's very labor intensive. That you have to consider that option. What about what the rest of you guys think?
I think your mom was hit the nail on the head. When you have those other
Hmm.
types of training, the from the technical standpoint, you are working harder than a degree. The higher up, it's
True.
usually, the theory is, usually more than likely, the more degrees you have, the less you work, right? In some areas, and again, it depends on where you go or what you want to do. But yeah, I know I never wanted to do any type of hard labor with my hands, because I just I didn't want to do that. So I just didn't. And I knew, okay, let me go to college so I can work with my mind, right?
Right.
And when my
Right.
hands don't work anymore, my mind is still working, and I can
Forever.
still make some money, right?
Forever. And at less rate. Like I
Right.
know people who are working in their 60s making good money not doing anything.
Right.
Like right now I'm working 3 hours a day, 4 days a week,
Right.
you know, and I may and somebody may be making as much money as me, but they gotta work harder. So that's the only thing. It's about what you want to do, and if you like to do it, that's fine. But young people, I want you to consider as you get to 40s and 50s, do you want to be doing that?
Hmm.
That's the key. That's the key thing. What are some other alternatives? K Boogie
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
Kara Hardage, which is Jamal's beautiful wife, who is also a nurse. Business ownership is an alternative. It's an alternative or it's a supplement. It's a both. It could be both. Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely an alternative for
I
sure.
was
And
going to comment on that, and I was going to say, and I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I don't think, a lot of people push entrepreneurship, but there are some people that don't want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to be a business owner. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to have to worry about um, paying other people. And I don't want to have to worry about getting insurance for other people, or finding insurance for myself, or, just payroll and taxes. And I don't want to have to worry about that stuff. So there are some people that don't want to be a business owner, and they do not want to be an entrepreneur. I know a lot of people push that route, but everybody can't be an entrepreneur. Everybody can't be a business leader. You just can't. If
yes, you
everybody's a,
can.
if
Yes, you can.
everybody's a business owner, then who are the consumers? So
Yeah.
it's
You know, yeah, Rochelle, it took me my whole life, all I saw was business owners. Like my dad had his business pretty much my whole life. I saw him grind, and that was my almost my first thing out of college, right? I had my own, and so that's all I knew. And so I didn't really think that there's people out there. It's like if you could own your business, you go get it, right? And so it took me a while. Like I was in probably my mid 30s when I've heard this, like that argument for, and like it makes sense to me. Like it's like, oh, you know what? Not everybody is wired to do that. Not everybody wants to do that.
Mhm.
And I'm just and it's okay. You know what I
No,
mean?
it's not okay. We need more.
It
I'm just playing. I'm just
no,
playing. You're right.
but
You're right.
it's a balance. It's a balance, and there's a lot of things, and this is why it is. Like me and my wife, we're like total opposites in a lot of things. And one of the things that I've learned is that there's some things that she does that are just like, okay, that's different. But instead of like squashing it, it's just like, oh, okay, you know what, the world needs that, right? And just like the world needs like me to be like kind of low key, and you know, what I mean, like everybody like, and so I think that's how it works. You know, there's some people who there's no way that they could work for somebody else. Like
Mhm.
I've met many of them, and then there's people like me. I kind of do a little bit of both, but it's like yeah, it's a thing. You know, it's
Yeah.
I do think that business ownership is a viable alternative, with or without a college degree. But
Mhm.
I think something that a lot of people tend to forget is that even with business ownership and entrepreneurship, you still need some kind of um, education. You got to
Training.
go and educate yourself in some way, whether you go get a formal degree or something, because we've seen it how many times people try to do these things, and a lot of times it fails, and that's because they
Yes.
don't really know what they're doing. They haven't gotten the right instruction. A lot of it is trial and error. A lot of errors, more errors than anything.
More than
And then you see people struggling, and again, now you're in your 40s and 50s trying to figure out, well, I can't keep doing this, what am I going to do? So although it is a viable alternative, I do think that having some kind of education about how to do it is essential.
I'm in total agreement with that because I really believe what education provides is accountability. It's like you do what you do when you say you're going to do it, when I say you're going to do it as a professor, or I hold you accountable for it. It's a standard. You have certification exams to show that it's standards. That's the critical thing. Howard, it looks like you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a form of training, right?
Yeah.
It's a form of training out there in this world, and uh, things like that are essential. Like was mentioned already, like a lot of the stuff is cultural shift, right? Like, we went through a period where it was like everybody needs to go get an education, and that's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. And then people went and got it. Like, a lot from our generation, we went and got it just because we learned that that was what we were supposed to do, right? But what does that lead to, right? It leads to a lot of times it leads to a lack of self awareness and identification because you're just going and getting the
Yes.
degree,
Mm-hmm.
right? And people who did what Jamal did were an anomaly, and they still sort of are now. It's like, well, you're going to leave, and not, start a family, and really, my man just went and figured himself out. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so, and then when you reach a certain stage in your maturity now, like, I really believe that's the biggest thing that we can benefit. Like, that should be, I think it should be a shift of focus as to, the, you know, what aspect of education really is important. You know what I mean? What aspect of going and getting an education really is important? Because it should really be something that's leveraged, right?
Yeah.
It's not just something that you just go and get, like, just to have it, right? That's why a lot of people go and get it and have it and not know what to do next, or they can't get the job and so forth. And a lot of times it really doesn't even match who they are, because they didn't really figure it out yet. So
Yeah.
I think when it comes to STEM, for example, the STEM community, I know for myself, I didn't want to deal with people.
Me too.
I didn't want to deal with people. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to. Bacteria always do what they're supposed to do. They don't.
People are tough.
They don't talk back. They don't argue. They're very predictable. Like, STEM community, for the most part, a lot of folk are, we just want to operate right here in this little bubble. Let me deal with my petri dishes and leave me alone, right? That's a lot of. I'm actually not like that. I'm sort of right down the middle, And
Mhm.
so, but what happens is the more you mature, right? Then you realize, well, what I'm doing here, I could lead this, or I could do this, or I could have this, or I could do that. But that comes with maturity. So if you're going to do education, it should be to leverage, it should be something that you leverage in order to be where you want to be, do what you'd like to do, and impact in a special way. If you don't have that approach, then so that's when the emptiness comes, when you are, doing whatever you're doing and not really enjoying it.
Love it, love it. K Boogie Kara says, "Where are the STEMists without degrees? I want to know if they feel like they need one or they regret not getting one." I think there are rare STEMists without degrees, and the ones that don't have degrees, they got certifications and they're doing just fine. So the ones that are doing just fine are probably, so I don't have any STEMists without degrees, because they're so they usually get degrees. But if I talk to some of them, the ones that regret, they hit a ceiling, and they see people that are less smart than them getting better jobs and more money because of the degree, and they're annoyed with that, or they're just fine because they've learned how to network their way up without a degree, and they're making really really good money, and they're like, why do I need a degree? I make good money, and money is enough for me. I don't need to be in leadership. So I think the answer is yes to both. Yeah, yeah. How do factors such as cost, student debt, job prospects impact the decision to pursue college? I
Yeah,
took
to
a
me,
breath.
this is a tough one. This is a tough one because, me and my wife, we literally just paid off our student loans, right? And so
Yeah,
that's a
everybody
big
good.
deal, right? That's a big deal. And so, knowing what I know now, there's no way that I would have gotten into debt unless it was like definitely, I would have tried other methods, right? I probably would have worked, going to school, and did some other stuff because, you think, okay, you know what, whatever. This is the path, right? They say go to school. They say, come out, make money, and then everything is great, right? And so you still, like, I understood that you're gonna have that, you have to pay it back and all that good stuff. So I understood the financial implications, but it still doesn't prepare you for the weight of it. You know what I mean? For the longevity of it. And so, it's a toss up. I think with STEM, just kind of what I said at the beginning, it's a little different because there's like the cost to value ratio it hits different than a lot of the other majors, right? And so there is a sense of that, that okay, you could take it, but yeah, it's a tough one. I'm one of the ones that college is going up in price, right? I'm about to send my son to school now, and so it's real. Like it's it's real. So I don't know. It's the cost of education, though, right? What are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do?
Listen, I'll let you guys answer, but and I don't want my colleagues to stone me because I am in higher education. But there's some degrees that would not go to a university to pay for. Like if I I'm only going to university for STEM. I'm being straight up. I'm going to university for STEM.
Mhm.
I'm not going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for an XYD degree at a university. I would do that at a college. Like I would go to a state college, stay home and go to a state college
Mhm.
for let's say an education degree. I'm sorry, Florida teachers don't make enough money. I believe in the context. I do believe that there is what do you call it? ROI, a return
Mhm.
on investment. And if you they say that this is what standard business people say in the context of education. They say you should be able to get paid in 1 year what you took out student loans
Yeah.
for,
Mhm.
right? So if you are taking out $200,000 to go to a university and you're going to teach at some school for $50,000, there's no return on investment. If you take out 50, and I'm talking about your whole education now. I'm not even talking about for 1 year, like your whole education. So I think there factors of cost and student debt, especially now, because these universities are increasing their cost, and they're not necessarily increasing their relevance, like
Mhm.
artificial intelligence. All those jobs that many of these institutions don't even know what
They're
they're
not
doing.
even touching it.
They,
Yeah,
they, it's
they're
they,
not even playing with
they're
it.
not even playing with it. So,
Yeah,
so what are you preparing the students for?
yeah, and
To
it's
have a
critical
nice
though, because
gym, to have a nice dorm room. That's what they paying that cost for. What do you guys think?
yeah, because like with AI, you can't to get a real job in AI, like you have to get your PhD, right? To get a real job, right? Not like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna manipulate this like machine learning data and things like that, but like on the forefront, like you need that. And one of the things, like I actually got my bachelor's and I went to Crummer for Rollins, right? So Rollins did me right. But one of the things about Rollins is it is a liberal arts school. And so like when I got my computer science through their whole program, right? And they just cut the computer science program for that program. And
Wow.
so now you're left with like English and
Wow.
and some other things which are amazing, right? If you go there, like really real talk, I think that those degrees have merit, right? But you have to understand going in what you're getting out. You see what I'm saying? And so if you go in understanding that, then it's good. When I graduated from Rollins, it was interesting because you had people that were graduating and then going to the Galapagos Islands to kind of just go and write and do things, which is
Must be
amazing.
nice. Must
Yeah,
be
their
nice.
life is set up for that, right? Their life is set up for that. But if your life isn't set up for that, then it could be dicey. Just like not everyone's set up for computer science, right? I talk to people all the time, and they're like, "Man, coding is hard. Like this is great. Like but like it comes natural to me, right? So it's a toss up for the STEM programs too, because like physics and calculus, like not everyone's made for that.
Correct. But then
Not everyone's made
don't
for
get an
that.
undergraduate
But
degree from a university. Don't
yeah,
consider
but
the cost. That's all
yeah,
I'm
but
saying. Consider the
yeah,
cost.
So
yeah,
that
and
that goes
but they're cutting programs like that, and it's tough. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because those are the ones that really are pushing the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
that
So
goes
what we paying all this money for? You cutting the important programs. Go ahead, Howard. That's
that goes back
crazy.
that sort of goes back to what I was saying before about leveraging it, right? And like if we're gonna if it's the same concept, right? If you teach people, not that I'm an expert, but if you teach people about forecasting markets, right, and investment, right, these are the sort of things that, I mean, if you like what has stood the test of time, like what are you interested in, right? What has stood the test of time? Where are the markets going right now? Where can you foresee a return or higher return on your investment, going and getting this education, this particular area of education? What floats your boat, and then balance all of that as much as you can. Like
Yeah.
that's sort of the type of things I know for STEM. Like you said, like STEM is just one of those things. There's a ROI, right? Well, there's also uh, with that, which school you go to, which program you end up going to, right? What's going to really,
Make you
but
think.
that's still taken into consideration. Your perspective on, man, if it's not going to be in this particular area or this group of areas, I can tell you right now, right? This is going to be your ROI, right? I mean, I think you got to take it all into consideration, right?
Yeah. Howard. I mean, sorry, not Howard. Rochelle.
I think for the younger kids coming out of high school, um, I know from what I've experienced, a lot of them are not going to college. They're seeing the expense, they're seeing the cost, and they're just like, nah, let me try to do these little side hustles and make. They're afraid of student debt.
Yeah. They're
They're
considering.
afraid of it and they don't want any parts of it. And in a way that's kind of smart of them, but they need to understand without that formal training and education, it's going to take them longer to where they want to get to. Now on the flip side, I think we went to college at a good time. College wasn't astronomical the way it is now. I mean, right now it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It
The cost
is
is ridiculous,
ridiculous. The
and the
cost
pay
is
is not that much different.
right. Right. When I heard some of the new nurses what they're paying to go to nursing school now, I'm like, this is price gouging. No, seriously, if you think about it, a lot of people in healthcare were making big bucks during the pandemic. And that's why a lot of people wanted to go into healthcare because they heard how much the nurses were making during the pandemic. And I think because of the high demand, that they've upped the price of college and those degrees. And to me, that's price gouging. I'm sorry. But I would never ever pay to go to college right now. It's astronomical. It's ridiculous. And every now and again I think about going back to school for my nurse practitioner. I'm just like, I don't want to get in debt. I'm not doing that. No, I'm good. I'm staying my butt right home.
Or have somebody else pay. I made a decision after Oakwood that I'm not paying for anymore. Einstein paid my way. You get somebody else to pay for it, but right
Mhm.
now it costs $30,000 a year to go where I went to school. It cost me 10, right?
Yeah,
And
it's like
I'm thinking about
10.
parents, social workers. My mom was a counselor for the public health department. They're making this in Florida. Social workers are not making a lot of money here in Florida. So
Mm-mm.
you go to school and pay 130 times for $120,000, and you getting paid 40
Yeah, it
for a
doesn't add
bachelor.
up.
It,
Does
it doesn't add up. We gotta
Mm-mm.
consider the cost.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jonice Caleb. She's in the house. She's like, it feels like a straight out up gamble, in my opinion. I mean, a lot of people are talking today.
Yeah, what I found is that my son, he's
Hold on a
just
second.
he's about to go to school, and my wife, she's amazing. Like she set him up with this thing where it talks about how to go get scholarships, right? The scholarship hustle. I will say he probably did not pay as much mind to it as he should have, but that is the game right there. I think the problem that I faced that I wish we would have done is like junior year. Like once he hit that junior year,
Yeah,
like no playing around, get the SAT, and then at the beginning just hit it hard, and then you have to be super diligent,
write
because
those
if you
essays.
if you wait till your senior year, then it becomes tough. But there's so much money out there that if you treat it like a job, then you can get the stuff paid for. But yeah, once you get to the senior year, it just becomes, you could still do it, but the grind just becomes so much harder. But that's the way to do it. I had my employer paid for my master's, but for your bachelor's, it's tough because you have to be working somewhere in order for them to pay for your school.
Right.
And
That's
then now you have to be going to school and working, right? And that's great if you want to take a little longer, which is still a possibility, right? Now instead of a 4 year. And I think that's one thing too, that, everybody has it in their mind that you have to do 4 years, right? But if you come out of school, if you take 6 years, but you come out with no student loans, you're still ahead of the game, right? Right?
especially
It's not
nowadays.
fun, like
Especially now.
it's not good, but like the idea is that if to come out not owing anything is critical, and it's tough to do because you got to plan for that. You're talking about 24, 30, like you said, $30,000 a year, and that's easy, right? That's not even a hard number, right? That's
No, I don't want to. Actually, I want Kamoy to answer. Do you have thoughts, and then I'll put my thought in terms of what I believe about student debt. I
Yeah,
think
I
you
just
was go
piggyback
first.
what Jamal just talked about. There is a lot of money available to go to school. So I'm hoping that for those listening, please don't be discouraged by the cost of this.
Right.
Yes, it is an expensive education, but there's a lot of money available, and I think it's important to um, apply some strategy to financing this education. And it's important, as Maya and Jamal said earlier, you got to start early. I think it should be a part of financial education in high school. I'm sure that doesn't happen at all. But, applying strategy, figuring out where there's money. It's not always just merit based money, there's need based money. But there's a lot of money available to go to school. If you decide that you want to, get higher education beyond a bachelor's degree, Making sure that your actual bachelor's degree, you somehow figure out how to get that for free. Stay at home, go to state school, whatever the case may be, in order to decrease your costs. That's what I did. I stayed at home, went to state school. I left college debt free. There was also money that was available for need based students. So when I left college, I left debt free. I did have to take loans for medical school, but again, there was still money available. And, my friends and I, we went in search of where could we get this money. And we left with probably half of what some of our colleagues, half of the loans that some of our colleagues left with. So there is a way to do this, even though it sounds a little daunting, there's a way to do this. And then again, most of us are in careers in STEM where you will be able to pay your student loans back. The return on investment for those can be quite lucrative sometimes. So there's a way. That's my
Yeah, I
piece.
believe in investing in yourself. I got student loans, but I considered the cost. You see, I got the scholarships, I did work study, I got internships that paid, and I said I'm only taking out Stafford subsidized. I didn't just go out and just get subsidized, unsubsidized, Parent Plus. Like I knew that would hinder me, right? I had a plan though. I had a plan. I feel like I think it is important to take out loans. So to Rochelle's point, so many students are like afraid of it, and then they end up working for the rest of their life and not having student loans, versus invest a little bit of money in yourself, take out a student loan, but a little one, and then work, and then do this and do that and do that. And I paid off my student loan, it got to be like 10 years ago. I feel like I've been debt free. And my career is lucrative enough to pay it back. It's about the return on the investment. So, for instance, if you want to be a physician, you're going to make all kinds of cash. I'm sorry, I'm putting you out there, Kamoy, but you got so it's worth the investment. It was worth the investment to take out loans, but she had a plan. Have a plan. So yes, cost does matter, debt does matter, but it shouldn't inhibit you, because like my mother said, seniors years come fast. Medicare will probably be changing in the years. Get those degrees or whatever it takes to make these coins. I can hear her saying it. Make them coins, and you don't want to be working for the rest of their life. There's a lot of people who are working well into their 60s, 70s, and 80s. My mother's been retired since she was 55. You understand? Like, there's value in that. So, all right.
And so, sorry.
Go ahead, Holly.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, and so education like this, like, receiving information like this, because I would say, come on, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a microbiologist. I mean, I wanted to be an obstetrician. Like that was my initial dream. My initial dream was to be an obstetrician. I don't know. I think I was watching Cosby Show, and I was like,
Yeah, Cliff
I
Huxtable.
really, well, it was actually my aunt. I saw someone pregnant for the first time, because I was like, someone in my family, my aunt was pregnant. And that was the first time that thing just fascinated me. And then my cousin came out, and it was just like, and so ever since then I had this desire, right? But by the time, my parents did not, the first generation, I'm first generation American from Jamaican heritage. And they didn't know all of the various things that, to inform me and to instruct me. The idea was just make sure that you do well in school, but I didn't understand structure, process, why exactly, and things like that. So by the time I was in like high school, I was like, these grades are not going to get me an obstetrician. So, but it's things like that young people are going to experience, right? That may discourage them and so forth. And so what am I telling my kids right now, right? From elementary school, I'm not telling them to succeed just because daddy wants you to, mommy and daddy wants you to. No, I'm telling them that, hey, this is how much this stuff costs a lot. And you have it. There's a role that you play, right? Get them grades. And they start to feel excited about getting good grades, and that it's going to actually be a part of their future. It's going to benefit them in the future. So it's that sort of thing where you have people, informing you of what you need to do, and that is your
Is
responsibility, and that
and,
there can be a benefit from it.
and that's why we're on here today.
Yeah.
All these beautiful colored folk, black, beautiful women and men. Isn't this diverse and educated? All right, I have a question. K Boogie says healthcare always has shortages because even though they finish, graduates aren't staying. How do you forecast that? So I'm premising that question with my next question. There's only two more questions. How has your STEM degree or education influenced your career paths and opportunities? And did you jump around? Did you stay? Like what's going on? Because a lot of nurses be dropping out. Why? How do you forecast that? Was it anyway?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one. That's an interesting one. I know when I went to school initially, like I said, I already knew a pretty good amount about computers, right? But I was like, well, I don't want to do programming. I want to do engineering, right? So I go into engineering. I'm like, well, the money's going to be good. I should be able to handle the course load, right? And so I go in there, and mind you, like I'd only been up to algebra 2, which is the normal, and then you get calc, you get just at the physics and the chemistries and all that. And it's just like, oh man, this isn't what I really expected, right? I thought I could just walk into a STEM major and just like, oh, okay, this is great, and then walk out. But like those classes get real, and and so you have to be prepared for that. And then if people don't tell you, if you don't have anyone to say, okay, this is what to expect, right? You can look at this, you can look at the course catalogs, and you can look and see this is the road to travel. But no one, just like on your guys, I'm sure no one got you ready for organic and some of the other classes, and so I think that's one of the things, maybe just like the Mike Tyson thing, everybody got a plan and, until they get punched in the face, right? So it's one of those type of things, or just life just gets in the way, right?
Yeah, yeah. Ro, you look like you want to say something.
Well, that question that K Boogie said, how can you forecast this? Well, until the hospitals change their culture, you can't just expect healthcare to always be in shortage, right? But the good thing about healthcare is you have options. You have options. So you don't have to stay and work in the hospital. You don't have to even stay in healthcare. There's a lot of nurses that are entrepreneurs, and during and after the pandemic, they opened up their own IV center. I know a girl, she has an IV concierge business where she goes to people's homes and she does IVs for them for rehydration. So, you don't have to stay in the hospital. You don't have to stay in that particular field or the common field of nursing. You could kind of bounce around in healthcare because you have that degree and you have that training and you have that clinical experience. So that's the good thing about having,
Having an education.
right.
Yeah.
You have options. You have
You
more
have
options.
you have options.
Yes.
You have, especially an education with a licensure. Oh my goodness,
Right.
them MDs and RNs and John.
You
Woo!
can,
You
we
you
as
have
nurses,
options.
we could work we can get a license pretty much. They have a multi-state licensure, right? So the majority of the states I can go to and work. Those states, I think it's like maybe, what is it, 12, 17 states that don't include the multi state licensure. I would have to apply with them individually, but still, I don't have to take another test. I just apply for a licensure to go and work there.
All right, what else do you guys? Anybody else want to answer that question? How has your STEM education influenced your career path and opportunities? Well, I'll say it for me. So my background. I don't think I explained who I am, but you've been watching for a while. I have a PhD in molecular pharmacology. I'm a biologist by trade, but I've always loved teaching. And so when I was in college, I actually wrote in my letter to graduate school that I wanted to be an anatomy and physiology teacher, and actually that's what I do now. And I'm blessed to love people as well as love science. But it has given me versatility. I am not fearful of the jobs that I have because I have such a versatile education. And for me, it has taken me to places of empowerment. Like, because I have a PhD, I am in spaces. I'm in spaces that my counterparts are not. So I recently got one of my students an internship. He just finished his degree, but he couldn't find a job. He's in computers, but African American men, especially, they go interviewing and they don't get the opportunities as their counterparts. But because I put myself in a space, because of my PhD, I was invited to a space that other people are not invited to, and I just literally sat down next to somebody who's also a person of color, and because we were both in that space, we said, "Oh, okay, we're gonna get this kid an internship, right?" For empowerment's sake, I feel like my degree is really helping me to empower my whole community. And so that's what I would say. Anybody else? We're about to close soon.
Yeah, I would
Um,
say, oh,
Go ahead, Kamoy.
Similar to Rochelle, with a medical degree, I mean, there are so many things that you can do, and particularly in the day and age with, you know, just telemedicine that exploded during the pandemic. There's a lot that you can do without even being employed by somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just to give you a few examples, if you don't want to be at the bedside, I can consult for certain companies. I can consult for, a lawyer. I can consult for the courthouse, or for certain
Right.
cases. I can, be right here in my home office and, be taking care of patients in Montana and Indiana and things like that. And I can set up my own business where I'm not employed by anybody, set my own hours, set my own rates. um, I can, um, influence. I'm not, I don't want to touch on that, but I can certainly influence, and I can educate. That's also another area that I can
I know
be
what you
involved in. So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
what you say. I'm not gonna get into the details of what you mean by influence, but we all know she's a maternal fetal medical doctor, so we all know what she means, right? That she influence, and there's some spaces that unless you have that level of education, you can't influence. And influence is huge for our community. So this is why I get into, and I'm going to end with our last question. A lot of people say, "Oh, you don't need a degree to make money." That is true. That is so true. You can get a trade, you could do certification, you could do that. But my concern, and especially in our community, that we are too heavy to one side. So if all of us are in trades, or majority of us are either in trades or blue collar, and we don't have anybody in spaces of influence, then our communities are impacted. If we don't have people who are lawyers, and we don't have people who are judges, it was a black lawyer that put his neck on the line to get 34 counts of guilt of a felony of the last president of the United States of America. A black man did that when everybody was telling him not to, right? A black woman in Georgia is doing that. When you see in the incarceration rates of our people, is so many lawyers that are not of our persuasion that are just passing us through, and that we need ourselves in certain spaces to help our community. It's more than money. It's more than money. All right. So, last question: how do you balance? So it's more than money. So we clear that, right? But money is important. So how do you balance the financial investment of a college education with the potential long-term benefits it offers in terms of growth and earning potential? So I think we talked about that quite a bit already, actually, but growth potential. Let's harper on the career growth potential. What are the growth potentials? We keep telling them that there's growth potentials, but what are they?
I would say the ability to jump off from, like, what I equate getting a degree to is just changing, like, the pool you're swimming in, right? So initially you're swimming in a bigger pool, right? Then, it just keeps getting smaller, smaller as you keep going up. But what happens is that, like, say for instance, I want to pivot and I want to go get a master's in computer science, or if I want to go get a PhD, right? I actually can keep moving up. Whereas if I don't, the bar just starts to become, like, the longer you wait, the more you put it off, like it just becomes a bigger hurdle. And so, you know, to me, it's just like, okay, if you get the degree, then you're already in position to make the next jump, right? Whether you have the money, so that allows you the resources, or whether you already have some of the classes knocked out so you can go resources, but it gives you a bigger launching point to get more ROI, right? To get more money, to get more resources, right? To be more influential. And so, yeah, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
I
Anybody
see.
else?
I see that. Like, I'm gonna go back to my L word again. You leverage it, like,
Leverage.
like
That's the word.
So for me, I don't think I mentioned that. I'm a microbiologist in the federal government, and so I studied. A lot of people. You talk about representation, right, and being in these spaces, right, and I work as a microbiologist, and still many people ask me, well, what my degree is in, right? And that just goes to show that that's not necessarily it's you don't have to go the microbiology route to get
To
where
get
I'm at,
into, yeah,
right?
yeah.
You have to have a science biology related degree. Well, I knew, similar to what you mentioned about just Maya, just about knowing, having an idea even at that stage, how you wanted to roll, like what direction you want to roll in, right? I knew even in high school that I didn't want to study biology. I love biology, I love science, but I didn't want to study I didn't want a biology degree because I felt that it was too general.
Mm,
So, and like I mentioned, I already knew that, okay, I'm not going to obstetrician, I may not be successful, right? So I started to funnel down and think specifically already. I started to think specialization already. So
specialization.
I literally wanted to get a degree in microbiology. And when I looked, I realized that the degree and the programs were actually pretty limited. There weren't many programs out there that were specifically microbiology. And so that was the direction that I took. And then I got a job as a microbiologist. And that's what I've been doing. So and then I mentioned, so like in the federal government now, in a place like that, starting off with that degree and then doing that type of work, the agency is actually vast. Or I should say, the agency that I work with is vast. And federal government overall is vast. And when it comes to, a buddy of mine does contracting for for government federal contracts, right, for STEM areas specifically. I think like IT in those type of areas. And that's another area where if you are doing federal contracts, if you're filling federal contracts,
Yeah.
that's pretty lucrative as well. So there's so much once you step in one direction, and again, it's according to your maturity level where you're at that time. And then as you grow and you learn and you occupy in these spaces and you learn, because I went to a PWI, predominantly white institution, and I work in a predominantly white lab, and I've always been in a predominantly white environment. That's for many of us in STEM, that tends to be the situation, right? So we've learned how to navigate these spaces, but like you mentioned, when you throw on top of that the why and what was the word you used? The why we need to be there, why we need to have the representation, what we the role that we play, the specific role that we play when we're there, right? That's an added element that a lot of people try to be like, well, that's not that important. I just want a job,
Yeah.
I think you start to realize it as you continue on how important it is.
How important it is. My mom says, "Show me the money," or she said, "Give me the money." All right. Any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I wanted to say that the growth potential is what you want it to be and what you make it. We have a friend in common who was a nurse during the pandemic, and he worked 6 days a week, killing himself, barely got any sleep, but he bought a house, bought a new car, paid off his student debt. That's not my life that I want to live. I work a 9 to 5 and I chill, and I still have a student loan. But, I could go and get a contract and make all this money and pay off my student loan. But I like sleep. I like to go out and hang out with my friends. And I like low
Travel.
blood pressure. I like my low blood pressure that I have. So the growth potential is what you make it and what you want it to be. That's my final thought.
All right. Listen, guys, this has been an awesome conversation, and I've had more people chiming in, even though all of them are my friends. Who's D? I don't D comment. I don't know who D is, but it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much. We got to do this again. I feel like conversations like this need to be had by multiple different types of people with different perspectives. So good night, everybody. I'll close on what my mom said because Joni says, yes, this is a very important. What did she say? True education also must include how to navigate, learning how to navigate. And we're going to be thinking about all kinds of conversations to be had because you can get all the education you have and still not know how to navigate these streets. It's financial streets. So that's a great point. But good night, everybody. Everybody, wave to the camera. I am the phenomenal STEMist, and so are they. See you.